The mockery and the response. The Zendari Empire stretched across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy, their crystalline ships cutting through the void like predatory fish, through dark waters. For 6,000 cycles, they had conquered and subjugated dozens of species. Their warriors, encased in living armor that adapted to any environment, were feared throughout known space. Their supreme commander, Kravix the Unyielding, had never lost a campaign. To the Zendari, humans were nothing. Primitive mammals who had stumbled onto faster-than-light travel barely a century ago. Soft-skinned, emotionally unstable, and technologically backward compared to the great galactic powers. When Zendari scouts discovered the human colony on Proxima Centauri, they saw not a threat but an opportunity for entertainment. The raid came at local dawn. Crystalline ships descended through the clouds, their weapons splicing through the colony's minimal defenses like razors through fabric. The colonists fought back with what they had: primitive kinetic weapons, a few laser cannons, and desperate courage. It wasn't enough. Among those captured was a child. Maya Chen, daughter of the colony's lead engineer, had been separated from her parents during the evacuation. She was only 11 years old, with dark eyes that reflected starlight and a mind sharper than most adults. The Zendari warriors found her trying to fix a communications array, determined to call for help even as their ships bombarded the colony. Supreme Commander Kravix himself ordered Maya brought to his flagship, not out of mercy or interest, but because he had conceived of a particularly cruel form of psychological warfare. Broadcast to all frequencies, Kravix ordered, his voice rasping through the translator implanted in his neck ridge. Every species in the sector will witness the weakness of humanity. The broadcast began. Across thousands of worlds, on trillions of screens and neural interfaces, the same image appeared: a vast chamber of gleaming crystal, and at its center, a small human child in a torn blue jumpsuit standing before the massive figure of Kravix. "Behold," Kravix announced, his voice echoing across the galaxy, "the future of humanity. Small, fragile, helpless." He circled Maya, his armor clicking with each step. "This is what Earth sends to challenge the Zendari Empire. A child." The Zendari warriors visible in the background pounded their armor plates together in rhythmic mockery, the sound like thunder. "Tell me, human child." Kravix bent down, his faceted eyes gleaming. "What will your species do now? Will they surrender? Beg for mercy? Hide in their cradle system and hope we forget about them?" Maya Chen looked up at the alien warlord. Fear was evident in her eyes, but there was something else too, a resolution that seemed out of place in one so young. She took a deep breath. "They're coming for me," she said, her voice small but steady. "And when they get here, you'll understand what you've done." The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then Kravix threw back his head and laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Oh, your weak, primitive species will challenge the Zendari Empire. Your people have barely." The broadcast cut off abruptly. For 30 seconds, screens across the galaxy showed nothing but static. When the signal returned, it wasn't from the Zendari flagship. It showed a simple desk in a Spartanly decorated room. Behind it sat a woman in a black uniform without insignia. Her gray hair was cut short, her dark skin lined with age and experience. She looked directly into the camera, her expression calm, but her eyes burning with controlled rage. "I am Director Helena Voles of Earth Unified Command," she said without preamble. "To the entity known as Supreme Commander Kravix, you have committed an act of war against humanity. You have attacked our colony and abducted a child of Earth." She leaned forward slightly. "Return Maya Chen immediately, unharmed, and surrender your forces. You have 12 Earth hours to comply. There will be no negotiation, no extension, and no mercy if you refuse." The broadcast ended as abruptly as it had begun. In the Zendari command chamber, Kravix stared at the blank screen, then burst into laughter again. His officers joined in nervously. "They threaten us," he said, incredulous. The humans believe they can dictate terms to the Zendari Empire. Supreme Commander, one of his officers ventured. Our intelligence suggested the humans possessed only a small defensive fleet. Perhaps we should. Are you afraid of primitives? Kravix snapped. Their technology is centuries behind ours. Their weapons can barely penetrate our hulls. Their tactics are predictable. This is clearly a bluff. He turned to Maya, who stood silently watching this exchange. Your people have signed their own extinction order, child. We will keep you alive long enough to witness it. Maya said nothing, but something in her eyes made one of the Zendari officers shift uncomfortably. Across Earth's solar system, something unprecedented was happening. From hidden bases on Mars, Europa, Titan, and a dozen asteroids, ships emerged. Not the bulky, utilitarian vessels that the galaxy knew as human craft, but sleek predators with hulls that seemed to drink in the light of the sun. 500 of them, then 1,000, then more, assembling in high Earth orbit. In a secure chamber beneath the lunar surface, Director Vos stood before the combined Joint Chiefs of Earth Unified Command. Holographic displays showed the assembling fleet. The Phantom Fleet is ready, Admiral Chandra reported. His dark eyes reflected the blue light of the displays. All ships fully armed and crewed. Stealth systems operational. The Zendari have not responded to our ultimatum, Vos said. Unsurprising. They believe we are as we appear. A young, weak species with limited technology. General Mbiki, commander of Earth's Special Forces, stepped forward. Ghost Team is prepared for the extraction. Once we locate the Chen girl, we can have her out within 20 minutes. And the Zendari? Asked Admiral Chandra. Vos' expression hardened. They need to learn why the other galactic powers warned them to leave humans alone. Admiral, you have command of the fleet. Your primary objective is to retrieve Maya Chen alive. Your secondary objective is to ensure the Zendari never threaten human worlds again. Understood, Director. Chandra straightened. And our technological restrictions? Lifted, Vos said simply. Show them what humanity can really do. The room fell silent. For over a century, Earth had hidden its true technological advancement from the galaxy, appearing as a young, somewhat backward civilization. It had been a careful strategy, to learn, to observe, to prepare while appearing harmless. Today, that masquerade would end. On the Zendari flagship, Maya Chen sat in a transparent cell, her knees drawn up to her chest. She wasn't crying, which disturbed the guard assigned to watch her. Human children were supposed to be emotional, fragile creatures. This one just stared at the stars visible through the ship's crystalline hull. Your people's deadline passed an hour ago, the guard said finally, curious despite himself. They have abandoned you. Maya turned to look at him. They're already here, she said quietly. You just don't know it yet. The guard was about to respond when alarms began to sound throughout the ship. On the command deck, Kravix watched in disbelief as his sensor officer reported. Supreme Commander, we are detecting multiple spatial distortions approaching at high velocity. Show me, Kravix demanded. The main view screen activated, showing the blackness of space. At first, there was nothing. Then, like ghosts materializing from the void, hundreds of ships appeared. Human ships, but unlike any the Zendari had seen before. They moved with impossible speed and precision, their formations shifting like schools of predatory fish. Impossible, Kravix breathed. The humans don't have this technology. Supreme Commander, the communications officer called out, his voice rising in panic. We're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. Admiral Chandra's face appeared on the screen. His expression was calm, almost pitying. This is Admiral Rajiv Chandra of Earth Unified Command. You were warned. You chose not to listen. Now you will learn why those who came before you told their children to fear the Terrans. With those words, Earth's armada began its approach, and the true nature of humanity was about to be revealed to the galaxy. Vengeance and revelation. The void between worlds erupted in light as the Zendari fleet opened fire, crystalline energy beams slicing through space toward the approaching human ships. Supreme Commander Kravix stood tall on his command deck, mandibles clicking in anticipation. The humans had surprised him with their fleet's size and speed, but Zendari weapons had broken far more advanced civilizations. This would be over quickly. Except it wasn't. The human vessels moved like nothing Kravix had ever seen, shifting positions with such speed that targeting computers couldn't lock on. Energy beams that should have split hulls passed harmlessly through empty space. And then, impossibly, the human ships began to phase in and out of normal spacetime, appearing and disappearing like quantum ghosts. What is this technology? Kravix demanded, his composure cracking for the first time in centuries. How are they doing this? His science officer's voice trembled. Unknown, Supreme Commander. They appear to be manipulating the fabric of spacetime itself. Our sensors can't. The officer's words died as the human fleet suddenly reappeared, now inside the Zendari formation. Point-blank weapons fire erupted from Earth's ships, not the crude lasers or kinetic weapons the Zendari expected, but focused gravitational beams that collapsed Zendari shields as if they were soap bubbles. Aboard the Earth flagship Artemis, Admiral Chandra watched the battle with calm detachment. The Zendari were adapting, beginning to predict the phase shift patterns of his vessels. That was expected. The entire attack was a diversion anyway. "Ghost Team," he said quietly into his communications link. "You are clear to proceed." On the far side of the Zendari flagship, away from the main battle, a small vessel no larger than a shuttle suddenly appeared. Its hull seemed to bend light around it, making it difficult to focus on directly. From its side emerged 6 figures in sleek armor that reflected no light at all. They moved toward the Zendari ship's hull, propelled by miniature gravitational manipulators rather than conventional thrusters. Captain Layla Esfandiari led Ghost Team toward their entry point, her mind connected to her teammates through a neural network that allowed communication faster than speech. The team carried no conventional weapons. They didn't need them. "Contact in 5. She sub-vocalized, the words transmitting directly to her team. "Remember, extraction of the Chin girl is priority 1. Minimal engagement with Zendari forces." The team reached the hull and placed small devices against its crystalline surface. Instead of explosions, the devices created focused quantum fields that allowed the team to pass through solid matter as if it were mist. They slipped inside the Zendari flagship without triggering a single alarm. Meanwhile, in her cell, Maya Chen sat perfectly still, eyes closed. She appeared to be meditating, but inside her mind, something extraordinary was happening. Like all children born in the latter half of the 21st century, Maya carried the Prometheus gene, a carefully engineered modification that humanity had kept secret from the galaxy. It allowed her to connect to any computer system, any network, through thought alone. And she was deep inside the Zendari ship's systems. Invisible to the aliens, Maya mapped the vessel's layout, located patrol patterns, and most importantly, found the path that would lead Ghost Team directly to her. When they entered the ship, she felt their presence immediately. 6 minds linked together, searching for her. "I'm here," she projected to them, using the ship's own internal sensors to transmit her thoughts. "Level 4, Detention Block C. 3 guards outside, 2 more at the block entrance." Captain Esfandiari's surprise was momentary. They'd been briefed that the Chin girl might have abilities, but this level of skill was unexpected in one so young. "We're coming," she responded. "Stay ready." On the command deck, chaos reigned. 30 Zendari ships had already been destroyed or disabled, with minimal damage to the human fleet. Kravix paced furiously, his armor clicking with each step. "Deploy the phase disruptors," he ordered. "If they want to play with spacetime, we'll tear it apart around them." His weapons officer hesitated. "Supreme Commander, the phase disruptors are experimental. We haven't tested them in combat conditions. They could affect our ships as well." "Do it," Kravix roared. "I will not be defeated by primitives." Throughout the Zendari fleet, massive weapons began to power up, devices designed to disrupt the very fabric of reality, preventing the phase shifting that made the human vessels so elusive. Admiral Chandra detected the energy buildup immediately. "As expected," he murmured. "Tactical. Prepare countermeasures. All ships. Execute Protocol Ouroboros." The human fleet responded with perfect coordination. Instead of continuing their elusive dance, they suddenly accelerated directly toward the Zendari vessels, as if intending to ram them. The Zendari commanders, caught off guard by this apparent suicide run, hesitated for crucial seconds. Those seconds were all Earth's fleet needed. Each human ship released a cloud of microscopic drones, invisible to Zendari sensors. The drones swarmed the Zendari vessels, attaching to their hulls. As the phase disruptors fired, the drones activated, creating localized quantum fields that reflected the disruptors' effects back onto the Zendari ships themselves. The result was catastrophic for the alien fleet. Zendari vessels began to phase in and out of reality uncontrollably, their hulls partially materializing inside one another or folding in on themselves in impossible geometries. Crews were exposed to vacuum as sections of their ships simply ceased to exist in normal spacetime. Inside the flagship, Ghost Team moved with supernatural speed and precision. When they encountered Zendari warriors, they didn't fire weapons. They simply manipulated local gravity, turning corridors into crushing pressure zones or zero-G traps that left the aliens helpless. They reached Maya's cell to find her standing calmly at the door, waiting for them. The cell's locking mechanism had deactivated itself moments before their arrival. "Hi," she said simply. "I'm Maya. Thanks for coming." Captain Esfandiari nodded, momentarily speechless at the girl's composure. "We need to move quickly. The flagship is still largely operational." "No, it's not," Maya said with absolute certainty. "Not anymore." Throughout the Zendari flagship, systems began to fail in cascading sequence. Life support fluctuated. Artificial gravity reversed. Internal doors sealed or opened randomly. The crystalline technology that had made the Zendari unstoppable for millennia was turning against them. On the command deck, Kravix watched in horror as his displays flickered and died. "What is happening?" he demanded. His science officer stared at his console in disbelief. "Supreme Commander, something is in our systems. It's as if the ship itself has become sentient and turned against us." Kravix's mandibles clicked rapidly in agitation. Then, with sudden clarity, he understood. "The child," he whispered. "It's the human child." With desperate rage, he activated his personal communicator. "All forces to detention level. The human child must not escape." But it was too late. Ghost Team moved through the ship like shadows, with Maya guiding them through her mental connection to the ship's systems. When Zendari warriors attempted to intercept them, they found themselves trapped in corridors where gravity shifted unpredictably or lighting failed completely. "We're approaching extraction point," Captain Esfandiari reported to Admiral Chandra. "Package secured and unarmed." "Understood," Chandra replied. "Be advised, the Zendari Supreme Commander has activated what appears to be a self-destruct sequence." Maya nodded. "I can feel it. He's routing all power to the ship's core. It will collapse into a temporary singularity in approximately 6 minutes." Esfandiari looked at the child with newfound respect. "Can you stop it?" Maya's expression was solemn. "No, he's using analog systems I can't access, but I can slow it down." "Then do it. Team, double time to extraction." As Ghost Team raced toward their exit point, Supreme Commander Kravix made his way to an escape pod, abandoning his crew to their fate. His mighty empire was collapsing around him, defeated not by superior numbers or firepower, but by a technology and intelligence he couldn't comprehend. And it had all been set in motion by a human child. Just before reaching his escape pod, Kravix found his path blocked by a single figure, not one of Ghost Team, but Director Helena Vos herself, having secretly boarded during the chaos of battle. "You!" Krevix hissed. "How dare you invade my ship?" Vos regarded him calmly. "You took one of our children," she said simply. "Did you truly believe we would not come for her? That we would not bring our full might against you?" "Your technology," Krevix said, mandibles clicking in agitation. "It's impossible. Humans are primitive. All our intelligence was exactly what we wanted you to see," Vos finished for him. "For a century, we have hidden our true capabilities from the galaxy while we studied everyone else. The ships you've seen in our territory are decoys. The technology we've traded is centuries behind what we actually possess." "Why?" Krevix demanded. "Why the deception?" Vos' expression hardened. "Because the last time humanity revealed its full technological potential too quickly, we nearly destroyed ourselves. We learned caution. We learned to watch and wait, until someone like you forced our hand." With that, she raised her hand, and Krevix found himself unable to move, frozen in place by a localized stasis field. "The ship will collapse in 4 minutes," Vos said. "Your empire ends today. Remember in your final moments. You brought this on yourself when you took a child of Earth." She turned and walked away, leaving the Supreme Commander trapped as his flagship began to tear itself apart around him. Ghost Team, with Maya in their midst, reached their extraction point and phased through the hull back to their waiting vessel. As they pulled away, the Zendari flagship began to implode, crushed by the very forces it had attempted to weaponize. Throughout the battle zone, the remaining Zendari vessels were surrendering or attempting to flee. None escaped. Earth's fleet captured them all, disabling their drives with surgical precision. Aboard the Artemis, Maya Chen was reunited with her parents, who had been brought from Earth for this moment. As they embraced their daughter with tears of joy, Admiral Chandra and Director Vos watched from a respectful distance. "Was it necessary?" Chandra asked quietly. "To reveal so much of our true capabilities?" Vos sighed. "It was inevitable. We've hidden in plain sight for a century, but the galaxy was bound to learn the truth eventually. Better it happen on our terms." "And the Zendari? Their empire will be dismantled, their subject worlds freed, their technology studied." Vos watched as Maya laughed at something her father said, looking for all the world like an ordinary child instead of the prodigy who had helped bring down an empire. "Most importantly, the galaxy now understands what happens when you threaten the children of Earth." Across the stars, news of the battle spread rapidly. Old powers that had dismissed humans as upstarts reassessed their intelligence. Species that had planned conquest reconsidered. And in distant corners of the galaxy, oppressed peoples looked toward Earth with new hope. The message was clear. Humanity was not what it had pretended to be. It was something far more dangerous and far more merciful than anyone had imagined. And it all began because someone had dared to laugh at a human child.